This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. Thanks for tuning in. We have a fantastic lineup of weekly guests coming up over the next month or so. Got some really big news coming from the Brave New Coin team as well. So please hit the subscribe button. You know the drill. If you're an Apple user, open iTunes or the podcast app, press subscribe. While you're there, please give us a 5-star rating. It all helps. If you're using Spotify or another podcast app, the same goes. Hit that subscribe button so you know when each new weekly episode drops. My guest today is Nik Patel. Nik is a well-known altcoin trader. He literally wrote the book on how to trade altcoins. We'll talk about that. But with the strength of Bitcoin and the rise of margin trading and derivatives exchanges, where to for the long-suffering altcoin markets? Now, we recorded this episode on Thursday last week. At the time, Bitcoin was holding steady in a range, but we were just starting to see some major altcoin moves, and because for the first time, the Bitcoin dominance metric was pulling back from its high of 70%. So we saw some altcoins moving, Stellar, Doge, ETH, all making some moves, making some gains in both USD and BTC, and crypto Twitter was just starting to froth. So I wanted to get Nik's thoughts on all this. Is this just a little sign of an alt window opening? What are the chances of a Q4 alt season? When is the point of maximum opportunity and minimum risk for altcoins? And why are the altcoin markets such a visceral expression of human psychology and emotion? All this and much more. And of course, crypto being crypto, Bitcoin dumped back below 10K a few hours after our interview. But as I record this intro, we're back up in 5 figures, and to be quite honest, I have no idea what the market will do next. However, Nik has some thoughts. So altcoin traders, this episode is for you. Hello Nik, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm excited to talk to you for multiple reasons because I think you'll have some really interesting, unique perspectives and experiences. You've been trading altcoins since 2013, 6 years ago. So I think you're a veteran in crypto trading terms.
Yeah, I mean, it was December 2013, so I don't want to sound like I'm, more experienced than I am. But yeah, December 2013 was when I got involved in the space, and I kind of took a hiatus for a little while, but it's been about 6 years.
So I reckon, in that time, you've made some money, you will have lost some money, you've been hacked, you've published a book, you've got a popular website where you publish regular coin reports and market updates. First off, how do you describe yourself, Nik? Are you a trader, investor, analyst? What's the deal?
I think I would say I'm a speculator, because all I'm really doing in a sense, is educated gambling. I'm taking fundamental research and, in conjunction with technical analysis, making predictions about price and then trading them on whatever market.
No, that makes perfect sense. Can we start off with your market outlook, Nik? Because I think every week you publish what you call a weekly market update, and you map out a high-level technical fundamental analysis of generally Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Monero. So to begin with, I'd love to get your thoughts on where you think the macro view of those three assets is right now, and also tell me why it is those three assets that you track on a weekly basis.
Regarding the latter question, which I think I can answer quite swiftly, I think obviously Bitcoin has to be in there because it's Bitcoin, and then Ethereum's kind of the king of the altcoins. It kind of started the major bull cycle we saw in early 2017, so that's still acts as sort of the sentiment gauge for where we are with altcoins, or one of the most significant sentiment gauges. And then Monero, I was always quite interested in because it was the most significant privacy coin. And I think privacy is so integral to cryptocurrencies in general. And that is, for many people, it's one of the key features of many cryptocurrencies. So for me, putting Monero in there on a weekly basis just gives me an idea of what privacy is doing.
Nice. I like that. It's quite an interesting time to be talking to you, Nik, because, when I woke up this morning, starting to see some little shoots of green across the altcoin market. So, and I'm sure you'll be excited to talk about that as well. But so just before we do that, what's the macro market outlook?
So to start with, I think Bitcoin's as everyone can probably tell, just consolidating right now. We've been in that range between sort of 9,100 and 12,400, I think, for about 2 months now. And then within that, we've actually got a shorter term range from the 9,400 to 11,100 highs. And at the moment, I'm not really paying much attention to Bitcoin. I'm kind of just waiting to see what the market decides to do. In general, I'm leaning bearish still, because I think from a technical perspective, we have a double bottom at 9,080. And in this game, there are no free rides. So anyone with long positions is going to be looking at 9,080 as the perfect place to put their stop, because, it's a double bottom. And I think that is a prime candidate for being raided before we move to the upside again and continue the cyclical ascent. Yeah, so that's where I think we are. But that will all change if we get a sort of higher time frame breakout above 11,100, which I think would end that bias for me.
Sure. I think we might as well just start talking about some of these altcoins, Nik, because that's obviously what's happening in the market at the moment. And I think even a week ago, the Bitcoin dominance metric was up to 70%, a 20-month high, and looked like it was just going to keep climbing. Altcoins were getting compressed, squashed, smashed, however you want to describe it. And yet, a week later today, the Bitcoin dominance metric has pulled back for the first time in a little while. It's now down to 67%.
Not only just pulled back, because it has had some pullbacks on the way, but it's actually broken, if you can term it structure, because obviously it's not a tradable market, but it does reflect much of the market in that it's comprised of all the other assets relative to Bitcoin. I think, this is the first time in months that we've actually seen a sustained pullback and sort of a bearish turns short term. And in the first week of September, I tweeted saying, I think we'll get a top in dominance. And I'm still not fully convinced, because I think it'll take a few more weeks for all of this to unfold. But it appears that 72% mark was the top.
Yes, and obviously it's probably too soon to say what will happen.
Yeah, definitely.
But it is, it's exciting, and I know, you're a big Twitter guy, as am I, and you can see a little bit of early excitement, I think it's fair to say, amongst some of the traders on crypto Twitter.
Yeah, I think it's been so long since anyone who trades altcoins, invests in altcoins, whether they're holding long term or trading short term, has seen any type of significant reversal since probably, April 2018, when we had a sort of complacency bounce after the big bull cycle ended. And it's just been, carnage since then, consistent downtrends, blood every week, new lows. So this has been the first sort of 2-week period in which we've seen some fairly sizable gains on some of the large caps.
That's right. And, I talk about this in a few recent podcasts, in that, the macro story for 2019 has been Bitcoin turning around from that bear market bottom towards the start of the year, and then effectively doing a 3x this year, while altcoins have not been able to keep up. But talk to me, Nik, about market cycles, because, cryptocurrency, even though, Bitcoin itself has been going for 10 years, which is not a long time, and various altcoins, shorter terms of that. But, you can still identify what you would call a market cycle within the kind of the macro picture there. And I know that's something that you watch closely, right?
Quite distinctly, quite clearly, you can see market cycles, and for a very good reason. I mean, altcoins are the perfect reflection, the perfect expression of human psychology. I haven't seen a market or an asset class that better represents human psychology and the dichotomy between fear and greed that we all find ourselves within. And it plays out so quickly because of this, because it's so accessible. There are no barriers to entry. It's global. It's 24/7. And the market caps for the vast majority of altcoins are so small relative to traditional assets that all of these psychological influences play out so much faster that we end up seeing several market cycles within the span of, 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, Nik, and I love the way you've described that. And it reminds me of, I'm sure you're familiar with the Wall Street cheat sheet.
Yeah.
That the psychology of a market cycle chart, and I think most listeners will be aware of that as well. And I think that the people used to say that the reason why, as you say, the crypto markets are such a pure expression of human emotion, greed, FOMO, fear, disbelief, all that stuff, is because, as you say, the barriers to entry are low. So there's a lot of participants from all over the world, and some are not, shall we say,
sophisticated.
Correct. That's a good way of putting it. Not everyone is a sophisticated trader, Nik. But do you get a sense that even that is now starting to change? Like, how would you characterize the difference between, say, the crypto markets in, say, 2015, 2017, and now in terms of the participants in the market?
I think there's quite a lot to unpack there, because it kind of depends on what we're talking about. I think the sophistication of Bitcoin traders in particular has gone through the roof over the past 12 months, because those with a proficiency in traditional market have often started to sort of lean over, dip their feet into the Bitcoin market, knowing now that it's kind of here to stay, and it's showing amazing volatility, and that's amazing for a trader. So the sort of skill set that I've seen in Bitcoin trading in general has risen significantly, which obviously makes it far more difficult for the unsophisticated trader or investor to really play those swings in Bitcoin with any degree of proficiency or accuracy. But then when you compare that to altcoins, I think we still have that sort of naivety, impatience, and I think that's pretty much simply because altcoins can be a lottery ticket for many people. Those who are in less fortunate conditions may look at altcoins as their ticket out of whatever negatives are in their life. So naturally is going to bring a lower degree of sophistication to the pool of market participants.
Certainly. Let's just try and drill down on where you think we are in the altcoin cycle. You've got several tools at your disposal in terms of being a technical and a fundamental analysis. I know you're a big chart guy, but where in the cycle then do we think some of these altcoins are? Are we in accumulation? What kind of range are we looking at?
For large caps, something like Ethereum, against the dollar, it kind of got dragged up by Bitcoin's outperformance and ended up coming out of its depression stage quite early. And then against Bitcoin, ETH BTC, that has been making new lows for the past 6, 8, 12 weeks until this past 2-week period where it's significantly reversed. So I think it depends on whether we're talking about dollar gains or Bitcoin gains, because alts against Bitcoin have probably only just started showing signs that they're resurging, coming out of that depression phase that concludes the bear cycle, whereas a lot of alts, even against the dollar, are already in, I would say, disbelief, or, coming towards the sort of mid stages of the market cycle. And I think that is largely predicated on where Bitcoin goes, and it will take Bitcoin getting out of this longer term $14,000 high before alt start seeing massive USD gains. But I think against BTC, we're going to see some interesting movements in Q4 if this period can be sustained into month end.
Everyone talks about alt season, and I think sometimes, people, they're holding on to an unrealistic view of, what happened in 2017, and that may well happen again. But, I like the way that Luke Martin describes, these kind of little cycles as not so much alt seasons, but a potential alt window. And if you're a trader, such as, Luke's a trader, you're a trader, you've got to take advantage of those small windows of opportunity that exist where altcoins can potentially gain against both USD and Bitcoin. And you just don't know we don't know how long that window will remain open, do we?
No, we don't. We've seen it in April, I think, that we got a sort of 2-month bounce of alt. It was very, very muted, but we got a 2-month bounce and a decline in BTC dominance. And even I was sort of thinking at that point, maybe this is where we're coming out of the bear cycle. It had been 14 months at that point, and I was thinking, right, this we've been in consolidation for a long period of time, and now we're starting to show signs that we're moving up, and then that ended up being a fake out. You're not really going to be sure whether it's a fake out or not until it's too late. So, for me, I'm kind of just playing it as it comes at the moment, but a lot of the signs that I look towards are showing that maybe this is the real deal this time, and the next 2 to 3 months may be quite fruitful.
Sure, let's hope so. And Nick, can I ask, when you're looking at these, I guess, medium-term cyclical trades, when you're moving out of a position, are you looking to take profit into fiat currency, or is this more of a using alts to stack additional Bitcoins? What's your approach there?
Definitely the latter, but that approach and that sort of naivety and overconfidence in altcoins against Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is the only thing you really need to look at, that overconfidence ended up with me not taking anywhere near as much out of the market in January 2018 as I probably should have. And that's because alt USD prices were going above and beyond anything that we had ever seen, 100% in a day, 1,000% in a week. And that was obviously because Bitcoin was also coming off its $20,000 high and was so overinflated. And if I'd been paying attention to that at the time, I would have thought, wow, I really need to sell a lot more. And so now, if I'm looking at altcoins, it's primarily to stack BTC, but then I'm looking at the alt USD prices as an additional exit indicator.
Nice, Nick. Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, Nick will talk about narratives, and I also want to talk about the narrative behind Dogecoin.
The Brave New Coin initial exchange offering is here. Having led the way with institutional-grade digital asset data, research, analysis, and portfolio management since 2014, the BNC IEO is live on liquid.com from October 18th. Unleash the power of BNC Pro. Research, chart, screen, analyze, and report, all on a single platform, unlocked with the BNC token. No monthly fees, and optimized for micro-transactions. A trusted team, working solutions, and real utility. The Brave New Coin IEO launches October 18th. Get verified, be ready, pre-register today at liquid.com.
Nick, one of the most interesting ways to understand the crypto markets, I think, is through the constantly shifting and evolving narratives. There's these ongoing meta-narratives like privacy coins, Bitcoin as digital gold, decentralize all the things, There's negative narratives like Bitcoin is just for criminals, or crypto's a bubble. There's the Bitcoin stock to flow narrative that Bitcoin is going straight to $1 million. There's the hardcore libertarian maximalist Bitcoin separates money from the state narrative. Of course, there's the alt season narrative. We have the DeFi, decentralized finance. That's a new powerful narrative. The thing about narratives is they tell a story and they construct a way for market participants to build a mental framework to understand what they think's going on. What are your key narratives that you're watching?
To be honest, I actually don't pay any attention to any narratives for the simple reason that I don't have enough time to concentrate on all of these evolving stories and how I think they're going to play into the markets. Instead, I tend to opt for individual research within specific altcoins and then having a macro technical overview, because I also don't think fundamentals play that huge a role in our markets just yet. I think it's still very early and price is pretty much driven by liquidity and order flow rather than any fundamental narratives that people want to attach, unlike obviously in traditional markets where the fundamentals drive everything long term. I think if we're looking at something like Bitcoin, then perhaps those stories are starting to play out. But I think even then, it's going to take another decade probably before we start seeing any real significance to fundamental narratives. I think right now we're pretty much just looking at manipulation, order flow, liquidity, those sort of things that are driving price. And price is all I'm really concerned about.
I think that's probably accurate, Nick. And I was going to say, because I know you have quite a rigorous approach to some of the fundamental analysis that you do, but it seems like it's a lot of work to assess some of these micro caps. And really, it doesn't matter how strong or weak that project is. As you say, it simply comes down to liquidity. And if a big trader or a whale is interested in
manipulating the market.
Correct. And that happens, doesn't it?
It happens pretty much all the time. And I would say that the vast majority of the moves we see in all of the cryptocurrencies are manipulated. And the beauty of this space is that it's all transparent. You can literally look at the rich list, the block explorers for certain cryptocurrencies, and you can monitor exchange movements and addresses and the largest holders and all that sort of stuff. And you can pretty much plot a map of what the largest holders, or what we would probably deem to be smart money, is doing. And that's what I tend to look for. And that's what I put in my fundamental research is, are these coins being accumulated at these prices and by who? And if I have that picture in my head, then everything else kind of falls into place.
Nick, I know you're known as being a micro-cap guy, a speculator, I think is how you describe it. I just want to touch briefly on micro-caps. Are micro-caps still a thing?
Yeah, this is the weird thing is that I don't even look at micro-caps really anymore, because the landscape's changed so much over the past 18 months. And I think I wrote an article about this ages ago, probably like 6 months ago now. Basically, my selection process for altcoins now, which does not require me to look at very, very low market caps, even if they are still around, because obviously the price of Bitcoin has inflated a lot of those. But it's because we've had such an extensive bear market. Even the mid caps and the high caps have kind of dropped off 90+% against Bitcoin. So you're not really getting any more upside from the micro caps, and you're taking on a lot more risk, because those are the projects that are, possible cases of developers leaving or scams or anything like that, relative to, say, an established long-term mid cap or high cap. And I would not want to take that risk without any significant relative upside.
Makes sense. And I think with the closure of exchanges like Cryptopia and some of the bigger exchanges, going through a process where they delist the smaller coins with less trading, it just makes those microcaps much more risky, doesn't it?
Yeah, very, very risky. And it just isn't worth that risk, because you also then have to download the wallets for these coins to store off an exchange. And that has its own troubles, as I know, having been hacked after downloading a wallet for a coin I was speculatively mining in October 2017. So there's so many issues that can come about. And we've been given the opportunity because of this bear market where we needn't take that risk. And there are very established, fundamentally sound projects that were $200 million market caps in their overinflated all-time highs that are now 10 million, 15 million. People can argue theoretically that maybe they shouldn't even be worth 10 million, but that's neither here nor there. I'm looking at where they were and where they are now, and whether there is scope within market cycles for price to appreciate.
Sure. You mentioned that incident when you got hacked after downloading a wallet for some obscure coin. I think it's an interesting story. Maybe if you just touch on the kind of the high level summary of that incident, Nick, because I think there's some lessons in there, and people used to talk about security a lot. Sometimes you don't see it. It's not such a strong narrative at the moment for some reason, but can you talk to the importance of security and what went wrong for you?
Yeah, I mean, I always thought that I had pretty sound security, that I would always take precautions. And, there are some things that you overlook, and especially when full of greed, as I probably was at that time. I was speculatively mining then, which I also don't do, which is simply the process of finding a new project that you think looks attractive and you mine it as an early miner. You obviously get a lot of the early rewards and then you sell them on a higher price. And I was doing that with sort of 15 different projects. And then, I downloaded one, which was called Phantom X. I don't even know if it's around anymore. And the wallet, which I also didn't know at the time that you should probably sandbox these wallets. So that was an oversight on my part. But, I didn't do that. I just downloaded it, I ran it, I started mining into it, and I woke up the next day and a remote access Trojan had hacked my laptop. And about, I think it was almost 2/3, maybe a little bit less than that, of my portfolio was gone off my cold storage.
Scary stuff.
Yep. And all it takes is one wrong oversight, one mistake. It's that quick to disappear. And, I was just very fortunate that the subsequent 4 months were very fruitful for the space. But, at that point, I was thinking, wow, I've worked all this time, put all these hours in, and it's gone because I made a stupid mistake with security.
Yes, and I think, if you're a new person coming into the space, one of those things that you really owe it to yourself as an individual to not just jump straight into setting up accounts and wallets all over the place before you really take the time to understand a little bit about what you're doing and, create a little bit of a security checklist, or at least a personal approach to security, right?
Yeah, and I think Not So Fast on Twitter has a very, very good article, which is still up on Steemit, maybe, if Steemit's still around. If not, then I'm sure he's got it up somewhere else. But that was an article that I looked to when I was coming in, into the wake of that incident, and I was looking for better security.
Yes, I think I've read that article, and he's Not So Fast is a guy that I suppose has taken cypherpunk security to the absolute extreme in terms of he has basically gone dark, right? So he's removed all...
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's quite on Jameson Lopp's sort of level of privacy quite yet, but he's up there.
My bad, I apologize. I think I'm actually thinking of Jameson Lopp's approach now that you say that, because it's
Yeah, he's really gone dark.
He's gone dark, and by dark I mean he's removed all identifying. He's tried to erase his digital footprint, essentially.
Pretty much,
and move to an unknown location and just operates as a true cypherpunk. And that's a kind of unrealistic ideal for most of us, I think. But, somewhere in between,
for sure.
You got to look into it, for sure.
Yeah, and there's simple things that you need to do just based on due diligence. Look at the wallets you're downloading. Do you trust them? Because I wasn't paying any attention to whether I trusted them at the time. I was looking at whether they were going to make me money. And, regardless of whether some made me money, one lost me a lot more.
Quite right. Look, hey, we'll chuck a couple of links maybe to some best practice security stuff in the show notes. I want to keep moving on. Nik, I said we'd talk about a Reddit just because, we were talking about narratives before, and I think narrative is really just a fancy word for meme. Crypto, we do love our memes. We do love the original meme coin, which was Doge, and I think you have a history with Doge, and also I think Doge is one of those traditionally a leading indicator for the altcoin market cycle. So look, give me your history and your take on what's happening with Doge.
In December 2013, I had never heard of Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, but I was on Reddit again, which I never really used, so I have no idea why I was on Reddit, but I just happened to stumble upon the Dogecoin subreddit. And that was a rabbit hole that I fell straight down. The first 3 weeks that I spent in that subreddit were, I was being introduced to the concept of tipping. You could tip someone 1,000 Doge, and, it's not pounds or yen or dollars, but it's its own currency. And there's no permission needed to send this to someone, and you can do it, natively on Reddit. And if you wanted to, you could download a wallet and you could store it on your computer. So these are all new concepts to me. By the end of December 2013, I was thinking, if there's one of these, there must be more. And I kind of found Bitcoin from there, found that it was the leading cryptocurrency, and it sort of started the wave. And then I thought, well, maybe I can make some money doing this. And I took my first 150 quid out of my part-time job paycheck and put that into Dogecoin and Vertcoin, which was another big proof of work coin at the time. And safe to say I lost some money immediately. And then from there, I've just always had a affinity with Doge because it brought me into the space, brought me all these opportunities, and I'll never not be a Doge fan.
Nice. I think a lot of people would agree with that. I'm looking at the Doge chart right now, and in terms of, those altcoin market cycles that we talked about before, it's just a beautiful chart to look at. Doge, it has pumped, I think, since 2014, every year at least 200 to 300%, and then it completely retraces. Yep. In 2017, I think it pumped 1,000%. And I saw there's an interesting Twitter thread when someone was talking about, isn't it weird how this Doge is, it's not, it's in some ways it's an abandoned project. It's still useful as a pure proof of work cryptocurrency, but it's really just a meme. And the reason it still pumps and then retraces, but it's because this, according to this Twitter hypothesis, is because so many 2013 original OG crypto traders, people like yourself, have a fond affection for Doge, so they accumulate it and pump it every cycle because it's such a reliable altcoin in that sense.
It is, and I think it does still have quite a sort of thriving community because it was always very niche, and there was a large community on Reddit in particular that were supporters of the coin, and even if it's not being currently developed, I think those people are probably still around and still using it for whatever purposes. You're right regarding its importance in the macro alt season sentiment, and I think when Doge starts looking as though it's becoming being accumulated and then starts breaking out of those ranges, people start getting very excited because they know what's coming next.
Exactly right. Okay, so let's just finish off our thoughts on alt window or the alt season. Where do you really think we are? What do you think happens in between now and the end of the year?
Yeah, so right now I'm looking at a few things. I'm looking at buy markets percentage, which you can find on Turtle BC or Ether Strumpf, which I can link in the show notes for you. And then I'm also looking at EOS against Ethereum, EOS ETH, which I find to be a very, very reliable sentiment gauge or indicator. And then I'm also obviously looking at Bitcoin dominance. And then finally, I'm also kind of looking at Doge. And so for me, I'm seeing that we've kind of bounced. We hit 27% for the buy markets percentage for altcoins in late August, so about 2 weeks ago, and then we fell off, and now we're bouncing once more, and Bitcoin dominance has obviously started to decline with that, and that's usually my first indicator that a new cycle is starting. And people can look back through Bitcoin dominance and buy markets percentage, and they can see these correlations themselves. And then EOS ETH was quite a new indicator for me, where I found that if I mapped EOS against Ethereum with the altcoin market cap in BTC, or Bitcoin dominance inverted, then the periods in which EOS outperforms Ethereum, altcoins in general en masse outperformed Bitcoin. And the reverse was true in times where Ethereum outperformed EOS. And so now we're at a point where EOS Ethereum has found support and bounce, and appears to be breaking out of a accumulation range, although this past week has kind of dropped it back to support because of Ethereum's outperformance. But I think if we do start to see some continuation in that pair, that's when we'll see further movements in altcoins. And I think once Dogecoin starts to break out of the 35 Satoshi range on the weekly chart, if you have a look, that's another confirmation for me that we are coming out of depression into disbelief. And obviously from there on, it's just market cycles.
Okay, well, we'll keep an eye on that, Nick. So Dogecoin, it looks like it's at around 27 Satoshis now. And that's up, 7% overnight. So lots to watch out for there. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, we could end up this could just be a relief bounce. And what ends up happening is EOS ETH breaks its current low at 0.017, I think it is. It's at 0.0194 right now. But if it breaks its current low at 0.017 and Doge starts breaking down below 25 or 24, then I think we just see further bleeding in the market. But I think if it's been 18, 20 months now, I think we are at the stage where there is maximum opportunity and minimal risk in altcoins, especially given where I think we are with Bitcoin, which is just range bound, if not bearish, for the next month or two at least.
And look, it's going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out. We'll be watching the markets. Let's take another quick break, and then Nick will come back and we'll talk about the book you published, an Altcoin Trader's Handbook, published in 2018, and then we'll finish off with a round of crypto hot takes.
Crypto, the asset class that doesn't sleep. The markets move quickly, with profits made and lost around the clock. It's a whirlwind, and you've got to keep up. You need enhanced tools that deliver timely data and accurate analytics so you can make informed decisions. You need BNC Pro, a customizable, institutional-grade suite of applications to help you manage your crypto investments all in one place. Get accurate market data, track your trades or custom holdings, and see profit and loss at a glance. Monitor any asset, trading pair, or exchange using Brave New Coin's trusted market data. Integrate BNC Newsfeed and filter it to deliver only the news that matters to you. Never miss an opportunity, save time, and make better informed decisions. Finally, the all-in-one terminal experience you need to master this brave new asset class. BNC Pro, launching Q4 2019. Join the waitlist today at bravenewcoin.com.
Okay, Nick, so in 2018, you published a book called The Altcoin Trader's Handbook. And, the book is your experiences from starting off as, a total noob who didn't really know a lot. And then, as you say, you discovered Doge through Reddit and fell down the altcoin rabbit hole from there. So just talk to me a little bit about what you were trying to do with the book, how you think it went, and I believe you're working on an update.
Yeah, so I think it was in October 2017, just before I'd been hacked, I was thinking about possibly creating some sort of online e-school sort of thing where, I would host webinars and show people this is my process and this is what I'm doing. And then I was like, well, this is just going to be too expensive in terms of capital expenditures. And then it becomes more expensive to sell to the customer. And then that limits the amount of people that can actually access the information. So then I was like, well, I was an English literature student and I love reading and writing. So why don't I just write it as a book? And I was thinking, well, I don't just want to write a dry technical analysis book that's been done 100 million times, or that there are probably far better books out there on. I want to show my experiences, and hopefully they're amusing and insightful. So the first idea for the book was to just do anecdotes and then follow that with sort of a short section on my process. And it ended up being the first third of the book as anecdotes from early 2014 when I first started trading altcoins to I think we capped it out just before the bull run in December to January 2018. And then sort of latter 2/3 of the book ended up being a deep guide to my fundamental process when researching altcoins, and then also what I look for with technical analysis, and then sort of the step-by-step process as well.
You said on Twitter that you're working on an update to the book. Is that the case?
Yeah, so I published it in June 2018, and obviously so much has changed since then, including my own process, which has become far more meticulous on the fundamental side. And I think there's just a lot I could add to it. There's a lot of additional material I have in my mind. And also there's so many more stories to tell from the publication date to now, or even before the publication date, from the start of the writing process to now. And I think it'd be quite interesting to just kind of sit down and spend the next sort of 3 or 4 months gathering my thoughts and, any funny stories I have, or hopefully helpful stories I have from this time, particularly the sort of depth of the bear market and how I handled it myself. And then I also want to add to those technical and fundamental sections because, as I say, as people can probably tell from the research I put out on my website, that my process has become far more meticulous.
Nice one, Nick. And we'll put the link to the existing book in the show notes as well. It's a really fun read. Hey, Nick, I'd like to finish off with a round of rapid fire crypto hot takes. Are you up for it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Nik Patel, I want your hot takes, your hot fire. Take your best shot. Here we go. Where do you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-coin opportunist spectrum?
I probably sit further towards multi-coin opportunist, as I think any kind of maximalism seems ridiculous to me.
Fair enough, Nick. What would you say is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
That Dogecoin will outlive everything.
Nice. Nick, Facebook's Libra coin, what do you think? Good or bad for the ecosystem?
Probably not a good thing, because you're then trusting Facebook with your monetary information, which I don't even have a Facebook account because I don't trust Facebook.
Agree. Nick, Bill Gates famously said, we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. What does the blockchain space look like in 10 years?
10 years, wow. I haven't thought that far ahead, that's for sure. But if I'm thinking about it right now, I think Bitcoin will probably be, if not the reserve asset, then getting towards a stage where it's deemed a reserve asset. And I also think that there will be a lot of turmoil in the traditional markets, which will have a knock-on effect in cryptocurrencies. And I think that's where we'll see the sort of early adopter stage end and the mature stage of the cycle begin. And I think that's going to take another decade to play out.
Nick, let's put you on the spot. Alt season. Are we about to get an alt window or an alt season, or more suffering and pain for altcoins?
I'm going to say we're going to get an alt season that will begin in Q4.
Nice. Nick, let's zoom out. What's the long-term future for the human race? Do you see dystopia or utopia?
I'm optimist, and I think that, despite what we tend to see portrayed in media, online, social media, all those sorts of things, that the overwhelming arch of humanity is definitely leaning positive. And if you look at Steven Pinker's recent book, it shows the progress that has been made over the past 2-3 centuries, and particular this past century, and I think it will only continue.
That's right, and I think the Pincus thesis is that every year the curve is bending towards life improving across multiple vectors for the general majority of the population, right?
But yes.
Brilliant. And finally, Nick, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, or show?
Frankenstein.
I love it. Go the monster movies. Hey, Nick, thank you for talking to me today. Take us out. The microphone is yours. Tell the listeners how they can find you on your various platforms and what you got going on.
Thank you for having me, firstly. And if anyone wants to find me, they can have a look at my Twitter, which is @CoinTraderNick. And then my website is altcointradershandbook.com. I know it's a mouthful, but you can find the link in my Twitter bio.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin.